Good afternoon and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Welcome to RGV Aerial Photography's deep dive into images he captured this week around the shipyard and launch site in Boca Chica, Texas. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Starbase Weekly live stream. This is Zach from CSI Starbase, and we do not have Mauricio with us today, so that's why I'm starting off the show. Mauricio is currently out doing ground photos. As you all know, there was a static fire test of Booster 9 yesterday, so Mauricio was not able to get out and do ground photos like he typically does on Friday, so that's what he's doing today. But that's fine because we still have other guests with us today. We have a new guest with us for the first time, Ryer from the Ring Watchers. Ryer, thanks for joining us.
Howdy, y'all. I don't know why I said that. I've never said that before in my life. Wow.
Sound like you belong down here with me, Ryer.
Howdy.
And Ryer, a lot of people don't know, is actually Jax's older brother.
Yeah, I tend to bully him a lot. He doesn't like me anymore.
Yeah, Ryer's a part of the Ring Watchers as well, so he's very knowledgeable for all of our ring yard stuff that I tend to be lacking in. So thanks for joining us. We also have Nate with us again.
Hey, everybody. I guess I'm the one that should say y'all. Good to be back again for another week of studying what's changed.
Awesome. And we also have Astro Joe with us as well.
Good day, my friends. Welcome to Starbase Weekly, episode 88. Let's enjoy the show.
Awesome. Yeah, and I should also mention we have Indy with us. Indy, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. And yeah, like I said, we have a ton to cover this week. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we had the static fire test of Booster 9. So I think this time around I'm going to do things a little bit differently, and we'll cover some of that stuff right off the bat. So first of all, let's just get some ground images, because Mauricio actually made it out there earlier in the week when Booster 9 was moved out to the launch site and lifted onto the orbital launch mount. So he got some really cool ground images of Booster 9 as it was being lifted. I think this is like his third or fourth time, probably even more, catching one of these lifts in process. I've never gotten to see one myself, even though I've been down to Starbase like 5 times, but super jealous that he was able to see this. But as you all can see here, I'm going to get this image. One of the cool things that we saw about Booster 9, other than obviously it's a new hot stage ring, this time it rolled out with like little
Booties.
booties on the.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt, but apparently our stream has a Cloudflare warning.
A Cloudflare? What's that?
Cloudflare, the hosting service. There's like one of those warnings. It's like the browser is working, Cloudflare is working, but the host is not. And it's just like overlaid on the stream.
Indy, are you seeing that on your side?
Yeah, I see it on YouTube. I don't have it on my screen, though.
Well, that's interesting.
It's gone.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryer, for pointing that out.
Cool. Carry on.
Cool. Awesome. Well, as I was saying, y'all can see that they had these little boots on the engines, and the one thing about that, we were kind of hoping that we'd be able to see the engine numbers again, just so we could tell whether or not any of them had been swapped out from the last static fire. But as you can tell, they were all covered up. The interesting thing about this is they don't quite seem to have 33 of these. So in place of the areas where they didn't have additional ones to use, they used like your typical moving van. If you've ever rented a U-Haul or something like that, then you've definitely seen these before. I thought that was kind of hilarious when I saw that, just the way that these are on here.
Oh, yeah, you love it. Somebody went to Harbor Freight and said, we need 8 moving blankets, please.
I think they have even more of them, so there's eight more on this backside as well.
Oh, yeah, they're doubled up. You're right. There's 16 of them.
Yeah. These are kind of cool, though. I did think that they had more of them, because I think we saw Booster 7 with these at one point. I could be wrong, but I do remember seeing these once before. But one other interesting thing, and I don't know if we have a shot that's going to show it here. I did notice that there was a little bit of damage on the skirt of the vehicle, like the bottom little black ring down here. But I think it's on the back side, so we're not able to see it. It was weird. It looked like it was kind of like chipped off in one of the locations. Maybe we'll be able to find a picture of it here in the background and then show that to you guys. But other than that, we didn't really see too many changes with Booster 9. As you guys can tell, it did have the hot stage ring added on top. So that looks pretty cool up there. It's going to be nice to see the first full stack with the Starship, so that we can, see that extra height that it's going to have. That's going to be actually kind of one thing I'm really interested in the upcoming week or so whenever Ship 25 gets out there. But yeah, let's take a look at this static fire footage from SpaceX. And actually, first I'm going to show the footage that Mauricio took, because it really made me laugh. So just give me a second. I'm going to pull his up in the background here. Let's see. Cool. Here it is. So once again, I do not have audio, so we're just going to have, that didn't work. Give me 1 second. I'm going to fix that really quick and then get this up on the screen.
Quick spoilers. New testing.
So let's see here. I don't know if this is the actual video, if I'm on the wrong one. This is just the, here we go. Let me pause that one. So this is the one we want. So Mauricio had his remote camera out there. Turn the audio off so it doesn't pull in from the background. And death. Yeah, that's an interesting angle for me, even though it was kind of blocked out after all of the exhaust plume reached it. The interesting thing I noted was obviously all of the debris that was that hit the camera, and there was actually a lot of debris left over after the launch too that wasn't seen before. And I think one of the things that you can see here is that from the ground level down here, the plume is actually just traveling right over the ground. So it's not like it's above the ground, it's on the ground. So I think that all of the extra debris that was seen after this was coming from like right outside of the pad. And I don't think that most of the stuff that we're seeing is actually from the pad itself.
Yeah, and there was quite a pressure wave off of that firing as well.
Yeah.
It could very easily dislodge stuff.
Yeah, pretty intense. Another cool angle we have is from SpaceX here. So which one do I want to go with first? I'll go with the overhead.
The overhead's sick. It's crazy.
Yeah, this overhead is pretty nice. So one big difference with this, so I want to actually also show the first static fire test as well, so we can see this. So with this first static fire test, there's a lot of things that I noticed that were different. For one, you can see that after this test ended, it took a little while longer for the actual water pressure to recover. So you can kind of see it was a little bit low down here, and then it actually started picking back up a little bit. Whereas in the test from yesterday, it was much faster in that recovery. So let's look at that same angle right here. So it seems like the water pressure resumed much faster in this time around. Obviously, the first one I showed was kind of slowed down because I think SpaceX had it like running at 50% speed or something like that. But yeah, the water definitely recovered a lot faster this time around. Matter of fact, you know what? Let me actually see. I think I can adjust that speed on this one. Let's see. Let's go at 2x speed. So this is the first test again. Yeah, so you can see that the water took slightly longer to recover that time around. So that's one thing I noticed, was that they seem to have made some changes with the actual gas system. So they did add in several new high pressure gas tanks, which we believe were also used during this test. So that gives them a little bit more pressure to force that water out. That is amazing. This is my favorite view for sure. That's why I saved it for last. So one other thing that I noticed, and I kind of posted this on Twitter the other day. I don't know if we're going to be able to really see it in these views. But so basically the timing from when the actually this is a good view to show it. So the timing from when the water system actually initiates to when the booster ignites its engines was changed this time around. So for one, the water system was only active for about 4 seconds before ignition, versus in the first test it was about 6.5 seconds. And then the other big thing is the moment that I'm going to try and pause this actually. The moment that you can see the valves close on the weir pipes, it actually ignites like almost immediately after that. I think it was about half a second to a second after those valves close. So if you like pay attention to those, you'll see that. So closed right there, and ignition. Actually during the SpaceX live stream, they mentioned that they were messing with timing. And so let's go back to this first one again. One of the other things that I noticed here was that in the first test, you could actually see the 3 different engine groupings as they start up. And I'm going to slow this down. So maybe 25% is a little bit slow, but I'm just going to let it go. So that's the center engines. Hold on, let me do that one more time. So first you'll see the center 3 engines, and then the ring of 10, and then the outer 20. So right here you have the center 3, that's the outer 10, or center 10, and then the outer 20 go last. So 3 separate groups. And when we look at the test from yesterday, you can see that it seemed that there was only 2 groupings. So there's 1 and then 2. So I wonder if that was one of, maybe I'll slow this down a little bit so we can just verify that that's actually what's happening. So massive shockwave, and then a second one. So I think this is one of the big changes that they made was the actual startup sequence, which is interesting. Without performing multiple static fire tests, they really only have like one opportunity to make changes. So, this is like, it'll be interesting to see if they actually change it again for the actual launch, but it's definitely different from the last static fire. And I think maybe this may have something to do with the issues that they had with the engine shutting down. Like, we obviously don't know what caused that, but theoretically, let's just say that part of that issue was actually delivering fuel to the engines like properly, because it's a massive amount of fuel. You go from having zero flow to like 100, well, not 100, but a massive amount of fuel going from just not moving at all to being forced through those engines all at once. So I wonder if they were having issues with running 3 separate groups with actually maintaining fuel pressure in those engines. And this, in my opinion, may possibly be a result of that. But just another interesting observation I wanted to point out on that. Did you guys have anything else you noticed about these that you wanted to mention?
One of the things that I just think it's neat, if you go and you watch SpaceX's video of that Raptor flying into the steel plate where they were testing it out at McGregor, and then watching this, it's so similar looking on a different scale, though.
Yeah. I think one of those big things that you're probably talking about is, let's see. It's actually better to see in this original footage from it.
Yeah.
So let's see here. So right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool because, and I'm gonna try and slow that down again too. I guess one of the interesting observations. So first you see this huge cloud come out, steam cloud, and then when they show it from the that aerial view, you can't really see that same cloud coming out of here. And it's actually, you can see it just hovering here from that initial blast, and everything else is pretty much clear. So I kind of explained this on Twitter like yesterday. A lot of people mentioned not being able to see water flowing while the engines are lit. And for one, the flames from the exhaust are going to be on top of the water, so that's one thing that makes it difficult. But the other problem is that you're atomizing the water pretty much instantly, and then pushing the water down to the ground. So if there is water actually flowing out here, and you can kind of see it like right here, just a little bit of water below the flame, but it should be pushed down to the concrete pretty much immediately. So with that said, it's not flying through the air, so it's a lot harder to see because it's like going across the ground instead. But then you have the factor of, and I'm going to try and pause this here. You have the factor of that it's being converted into steam. And so this is what I would refer to as wet steam. So wet steam is actually going to be white like this, whereas dry steam is going to be clear or invisible. So there's still a ton of it coming out of here, but you can't really see it that well because it's clear. But as I said, I can see just a little bit of water underneath the flame down here, and I feel like I can almost see it on this side as well. It's hard to see on the other positions, but then there's also a little vapor cloud coming out right here along the edges that you can see as well too. But yeah, as Nate was saying, this is very similar to that test that we saw at McGregor as far as like how it actually looks. Yeah, pretty interesting overall. I think this was a good test. We heard that they lost 2 engines during this test, so that's an improvement from last time. They actually were able to make it the full 6 seconds, which is a good. As of this morning, we have seen that they do have the aerial work platform up underneath the booster, so I guess we'll have to see whether or not they end up swapping out 2 of those engines. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it went a lot better than what we saw during the previous test.
Yep, we're making progress.
Definitely. That's all we can ask for, right? And I'm going to close out of these because there's some audio playing from one of them and I can't figure out. There we go. Cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and go back into our normal operations and head over to the Massey site and see what we got going on over there. 1 second. And we'll probably talk about static fire again later in the show because I know a lot of people show up kind of late. So we'll cover that again a little bit later, probably at the very end of the show. But yeah, so we're over here at the Massey site now. And as you guys can tell, there is a lot going on here right now. So big changes from last week. I guess, Nate, what is the one of the first things that you've noticed here?
Concrete being poured on a slab.
Yeah, finally got some foundation work being finished up on this. I can't even see the embeds anymore as they're doing this, but we do know they're there. Yeah, still have no idea what this is going to be actually used for. I did Mauser, who was with us on the last episode, posted an article or posted the filings for whatever they're building here, and I once again have lost it. But we do know that whatever is going to be here is an office building with a mezzanine floor. So, we're kind of assuming possibly that this may be, like an operations, a control room for all of the testing that's going on here. Or potentially even could be related to the actual launch site as well too, because depending on how tall this is, it would actually end up having a decent view of the launch site. It should be able to see over all of the ground level plants and whatnot in order to get a good view of the actual launch site. So it will be interesting to see how large this structure actually ends up being once they start putting the vertical supports up there. But yeah, elsewhere they've also laid a little bit more concrete down on this side, and I think they're preparing to do possibly the same here, but doesn't look like they're actually putting any structures on that. But we do have some more updates with the booster puck shucking stand, the new stand that they're building. You guys can see that they've got it over near that test or the actual cryo station. So I'm not sure like what the purpose of that is. It may just be like attaching it down to the ground just to make sure that it like almost like a fit test, if anything. But they do have some more work going on with the QD. So we've been wondering like what's taking so long to actually get booster 11 out here on this test stand. And I think it could be related to the actual QD because it seems like they're doing some work on that. Mauricio had some good pictures from earlier in the week, which I will show here. So you can see here that this is the ship cryo station right here and the booster one right there. And they have a little frame up there where all of the hoses are now being routed to. So this looks essentially like a a booster QD like on the launch mount, except I don't believe it doesn't look like it will actually be retracting though.
No, I think it's going to be set up like the ship one. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's really good progress. We were wondering if they were going to just hang the hoses like they did last time. But let me return back to that. Yeah, you can see that since those ground images were taken on Monday, it does appear that they have some sort of plate on the front of it, so an actual booster QD faceplate. So that's an interesting update. We didn't even see this on the cryo station that they built near the launch site. So nice to see some new progress on making it a little more easier to connect all these hoses to the booster. Probably not having to use a crane to do it this time around. So
other thing about that stand, you can sort of see it in this picture, and you can see it in the last. They're going to use bolt clamps to hold the booster in place again. So it's not going to be any type of a setup like the OLM or anything like that. If you look at that picture you had up a moment ago, you can see the big nut, the big nut heads or bolts sticking up.
This one?
Yeah, go to the bottom right. You can see the plates. You can see the nuts on top of the plates where they're going to bolt.
Are you talking about
booster side? Go down. Go to the right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're going to bolt. It's going to be a bolt clamp system like a booster stand. It's not going to be anything automated.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because they won't need to be lifting it on and off. So like when they transport this to the Sanchez site, they'll just lift the booster on top of it there, and then secure it down before they move it. And you're not taking it off again until it comes back to the build site. And I feel like this is something that they'll have to do inside of the Mega Bay, because I don't think the crane at Sanchez is large enough to lift the booster off of it.
Yeah, it's not tall enough.
Yeah, but that's really cool. I mean, it looks like that's probably one of the last finishing touches that we were expecting on this. Let's see what else. Oops, sorry about that. What else do we have over here at the Massey site?
A lot of water because they finally got some rain.
Yeah, right.
It was like a tropical storm. They did a rollout during it, if I recall.
Yeah, that was funny.
I can't believe they did that.
Right? We kind of thought that they were going to hold off on moving Booster 9 to the launch site because of the storm, but
wasn't there like
in the middle of the storm?
I believe that the tropical storm warning was active while they rolled out.
Yes, it was. Let's see, they've unstacked.
I guess if the local conditions are right, then go for it. But
one of the things you can see is they've unstacked the nose cone gel, and they've unstacked the ship aft section from the hot staging ring at this point.
Yeah, I would say it probably looks like they're done with this thing, right?
It looks like it. I really thought they would crush it.
Yeah, I think test to failure is usually a good thing, but when they do test to failure, it usually leads to a lot of speculation of everybody being like, "Oh, it failed,"
Yep.
Until they come out and actually say that that's what they intended to do. But
I never took them for people that would necessarily care what other people would think.
That's so true.
Yeah, definitely true, I guess.
Just blow it up. If it works later on, then cool.
Very true. Yes, but I guess we're just waiting on that payload section test article to make its way to Sanchez. They seem to be preparing for that as well, since they removed the top off of this. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see that in the coming week. And we'll get a look at that in the ring yard here in a little bit once we get through the Sanchez site. But I don't know if we have anything else from Massey's to cover. Well, there is one thing which is a little bit odd. I did note, and I'm not sure, I'd have to go back and check this again, but it kind of looks like this rail has been extended. So this is the one that connects the 3 of these tanks. So I'm almost thinking that we may see a 4th tank added over here soon. And like I said, I'm gonna have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure this is another outlet right here for a 4th tank. So that'll be interesting to see if they actually go and add another one.
Now there's 2 tankers sitting there. Could they be adding more offload points so they can offload more quickly?
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. Honestly, I haven't figured out where the offload points are. I think they're I mean, these actually could be the offload points right here, but I'm not sure. I don't remember catching an aerial shot of them actually offloading. We have seen them offload over here, but I don't think I've ever seen them offload on this side yet. But let's see. Do we have any questions on the Massey site, Joe?
We have one related to Massey's. Knowledge is good. Why, or rather, would they risk the can crusher in order to do a test to failure?
I mean, I don't think there's much risk to the actual structure. If anything was going to fail, it would be just the actual hot stage ring, and so it would probably compress down on top of it. And I mean, ideally, as soon as it starts to buckle, you're not going to have as much force on it anymore, because unless the hydraulic pistons start pulling down even further, I mean, it should stop buckling pretty much immediately as soon as it starts. So it's not like it's going to continue to pull down on it. So when you do see buckling on something like this, it's not like, a complete failure. It's just like small buckling and then it stops.
Yeah, for tests like this, it's going to be rare that the actual failure is going to be a violent failure. Generally speaking, when you put a load down on something, the point at which you would consider it a failure, if you were to think, like, if you just keep adding force to it, eventually once it fails, that amount of force will suddenly drop in the sensors, I guess. And it basically, once it reaches that point, you know that it's kind of hit that point of, I'm trying to go back to my structural engineering courses. It's like the elastic point of the metal. Once it hits that, you basically just don't want to hit that.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Cool. Well, I suppose we can go ahead and move over to the Sanchez site since we don't have any more Massey's questions.
Let me touch on some donations here first.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Jim Cavett started off with 2 gifted memberships. Boom, $5, says let's go. Andy Alder, £2 all aboard, he says. 55 Chevy Guy Steve, $10 donation. I'll help get this train moving. Get Sonny some biscuits. Daniel Hogben, $10 for fuel and Sonny treats. Jim Cavett, $10. I'm with you, 55 Chevy Guy Steve. Methane Man gifted 5 memberships. Daniel Hogben, 5 gifted memberships. And we can move on to Sanchez.
Cool. Well, first things first, we have the ground fabrication building, which is basically in the same state as last week. Still no real progress on that. So they're kind of taking their time with getting the actual paneling, the roof paneling and the side paneling on this. So we're just keeping waiting until that actually happens. But next to there, we have probably the most exciting part of Sanchez right now, which is the new mystery structures that they're building down here, which we've kind of been assuming are most likely engine install stands. And you can see here that they've gotten all of the clamp holders in this. So this is where 10 hold down clamps. So they won't be using 20. They'll just be 10 on these structures. And they're also building another one down here. And Nate mentioned that they've got parts for a third one down here as well. And Nate, what was your observation that you were mentioning on these? I'll go ahead and switch to some ground images of that because we can show that as well too.
I'm just made the comment that this seems like it could be almost like a final work stand that the booster goes on instead of having to take up a transport stand, so they can do all their final bits of manufacture they've got to do. They can also install engines, and right now to do that they have to use a transport stand because of weight and stuff. And so I just kind of think that we're going to see, once Mega Bay 2 is completed, a little bit more of intentionality in how they do their stations.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I guess theoretically you could. Well, no, they do. I was thinking that you could do all of your stacking on this, but stacking is top down, right? So I guess that probably wouldn't be the case. Well, actually, no. So the Ryer, you can correct me on that. So they right now they do the entire methane tank, and then they do the LOX tank. And do they actually stack it on top of the aft section before they do the final stack?
Sorry, what?
So when they do the booster stacking order, like I know they usually complete the full methane tank first and then also complete the LOX tank, but do they stack the LOX tank on top of the aft section before they finish the full stack, or is that the last part that they do?
I believe it's the last thing they do, basically.
So theoretically, that could also happen on this, but
yeah,
I think it would still probably make more sense that they still do the stacking the same way that they have been, and then, as Nate was saying, kind of doing the final touches after, like after it's fully stacked, and then move it onto the stand. One of the interesting things that we've seen here, you can see this rod going through here, and then on this side you can actually see that this is a hydraulic piston. So it appears that these are going to be used to move the actual hold down arms in and out. So when they unclamp the booster, these will move out of the way. And I'm guessing you would probably only do that once the engines are installed, or otherwise there would really be no reason to actually move it.
That's what I was going to say. This suggests that there definitely will be engines on it when it's on the stand, or at least added to it when it's on the stand.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, though. I like this. It's interesting that, the way they always innovate with the way that they perform all these different tasks. It's really cool to be able to see that. So this will definitely make things a lot easier, especially during the engine install stage. So really excited to see that in use. I wonder if they'll move one of these into Mega Bay 1 before they actually finish with Mega Bay 2, or if we won't see them in action until Mega Bay 2 is completed. So it'll be interesting if all three go into one building, or if they're split throughout the two buildings.
Yeah, before you change pictures, something I had wondered, between those two Chevy trucks, you can see the legs, and the legs are very substantial. I had wondered, because we'd just seen them overhead, how big the legs were, because if you're going to do what we're talking about doing, putting a full booster that far up in the air, you need a substantial structure, and you can see they're substantial. They also have the plates in them to do cross bracing also.
Like right here?
The little hole, you could do like a wire cross bracing just to, make sure you're stable across. It's kind of like they do on the Mega Bay, or they're doing it on Star Factory between columns.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this once it's actually in action. It'll be tough to get good shots of it when it's inside there, but this will be really cool. I'm sure we'll get some ground images of it from Elon or something at some point. He does like to share some of that stuff, so we're at the minimum when EDA does his next tour of Starbase, whenever that is. Hopefully these are already installed by the time he does that. But returning back to those aerial views, let's see. So we also have the second stands that are under construction, and they've started the black ones. So they have started on another one, which appears to be identical to this one. And they're making good progress on this one. We haven't seen them install the actual clamps yet. But the big difference with this is having 20 mount positions instead of 10. And then there are holes through the sides of these, which, as I mentioned last week, kind of suggests possibly that there may be. So, I mean, if you have clamps through these and there's holes in these ones, the only thing that really makes sense to me is having Raptor QDs mounted in these. So, with that said, I mean, and that's kind of just speculation for now, since we haven't seen them actually finalize this yet. You know, it does to me look like this may be some sort of actual test stand for boosters, and that would be, well, I mean, even if they don't do static fires on this, it could at least be used for spin primes. But considering that you only need to do like one spin prime, well, I guess you do a spin prime before every static fire, but you know, it could also be interesting to actually use this for static fires. But for that, it would need to be either super high up off the ground, or have some sort of flame trench below it. And we do have some interesting developments going on at the Suborbital site, which could be related to this. But we'll touch on that when we get there. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to mention on these?
No, you know, the black stand I think is more a mystery at this point than the white stand. I think we're really close to what the white stand is going to be used for.
It really just strikes me how insanely heavy duty these stands are. Like, I mean, you compare them to the stands that they just like set a booster on. I mean, of course they are built to hold the booster, but these look like they're built to do something a whole lot more. And yeah,
I would agree with that. And you know, on the note of a possible flame trench, like these flame deflectors down here that we've been keeping our eyes on for a while, I wonder if that could possibly be related to that, because you know, well, I guess the weird thing is that they don't, the pattern that you would mount these in doesn't form a circle. I'm guessing, what's the right way to explain this? It would curve outwards instead of curving inwards, which kind of doesn't really make sense for what I guess what I would expect it to be used for. Yeah. If it was related to this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are some of the. I want to see where those are going to go. They've been here for so long, and they've gone through so many just moments of let's scrap what we don't need, and they have continued to stick around. So it's, you know, matter of time before they put them where they go. But I'd love to know that.
I would agree. And you know, in relation to these stands, we still have this structure being built over here, which is possibly related to either the engine install stands or if these are test stands, it could be related to that. So, you know, I've been thinking that if they have a static fire test stand, you would still want to be able to service the engines without lifting it off of there. So, you know, it wouldn't, in my opinion, be as necessary inside of the Mega Bay unless you wanted to place like all of your inner 13 engines on this at one time and lift all of them up into position at once. I could see that possibly being used for this, other than the fact that it would be really hard to get this underneath. Well, unless it was permanently underneath there, it would be hard to move it underneath. So if this was a static fire test stand and had some sort of flame trench below it, you could theoretically roll that underneath the flame trench and then lift it up underneath the test stand so that you can actually service those engines. So I don't know. Do you guys have any other ideas on this?
I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think it's going to have something to do with one of those two sets of stands. I just don't know exactly what. You can see the clevises hanging off the ends that look like they're most likely for, you know, grabbing it and raising it in the air. But beyond that, and then you've got those 4 pane panels that are laying out beside of it now also. So that kind of throws another kind of wrench into ideas of what it could be.
Yeah, I mean,
I haven't taken any. Go ahead, Ryer.
It's relatively certain that like all this stuff somewhat has something to do with each other. It's interesting that everything is based on like 5 or 10 or 20 in this case. I mean, like the white structure, they have those 5 like columns just sitting out next to it. It's based on like the 10 units kind of all the way around. The black ones are all like the 20.
Mhm.
So it would make sense that they all are related in some way. Whether or not it's a new test stand even that all this is going to be a part of or something. Hard to say. I don't really know anything more than you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the other things, I don't know here. Let me look at the ground image again. So Nate, you mentioned the like possibility of cross braces on this. I do wonder if those clevises could attach on here
As it
and
goes up.
possibly be there because there's a hole in the bottom of this. So I do wonder if like some sort of hydraulic piston could be mounted in that hole to actually push that stand up and down.
That's a really good possibility. It's a good idea.
Yeah, then it just locks into position up top. Like if it's the same up top as it is on the bottom down here, then it could just lock into position up there. That would be pretty interesting. But at that point, there'd be some interesting hydraulic pistons. If it's able to actually lock into the bottom, it almost would make it seem like the hydraulic pistons would need to be in the ground in order for that to work. But yeah, gonna be really interesting to see this once it's finished. Let's see here. So what else do we have at the Sanchez site? I'm gonna find us a different picture. That's not quite what I want. So one thing I've been on the lookout for is pipework related to more of the subcoolers or kettle boilers or hippos, whichever you want to call them. So we have seen 2 of them installed at the launch site this week, and we'll kind of touch on that a little bit more when we get there. But as far as trying to figure out when they're actually going to hook them up, it does seem like that's going to be after the next launch because we haven't seen any pipework being prepared for that. We do have this random looking pipe right here, which we initially thought was part of the water system, but we have not seen that actually installed there. And as far as we can tell, it seems to be, for the most part, completed. So no idea what this is actually going to be used for.
Now you're still on the
Oh, sorry
stand
about
picture.
that. This is the one I was talking about right here.
There we go. Ah, the snake pipe.
Yeah, this one's weird because they initially had this at the launch site and we thought it was going to be part of that system, but clearly not. So still waiting to see what that's actually going to be used for, or if it's one of those things that they initially thought they were going to use and now they aren't. Oh, okay. So I just noticed up here, these little pipe fittings up here are probably related to those kettle boilers. So I guess we can say that they haven't started actually constructing the manifolds for the new kettle boilers yet, if that's what these are for. Yeah, so we also have the stairs that are going on the tower, which they've been taking their time installing, which is really funny because, in the time that they've been mounting these onto the side of the tower, they've nearly completed the mega bay. So they're just moving super slow with getting these. And I think there's 2 more up here. And they seem to move them to the launch site like once a week. So very, very slow in getting these installed.
I think there's another set, maybe even further. No, to the right a little bit. There's another set.
I accidentally switched images. Just laying out here. Yeah. Guessing that's probably the next one to go to the launch site then.
Just when you think they're going to get all this area really cleaned up, it gets scattered again.
Agreed.
Sanchez, when has it ever been cleaned up?
True.
Yeah, we have in the area that they were constructing the mega bay sections, we have all of these rings sitting out here. And part of this is due to the fact that they are currently keeping the area in front of the mid bay clean. So they removed everything that didn't need to be in the ring yard over here. And we're going to touch on the ring yard here in a second because there's lots of updates there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But moving over to this side, Not much happening at the inventory tent as usual, but we do have some more progress on the actual water tank down here. So they've essentially doubled the size of this since the last time we mentioned it. And I don't know, I'm still not sold on whether or not this is going to stay here. Like, obviously there is a pad specifically for this right now, but it could just be like a flat surface that they needed in order to actually construct it, and it may not necessarily be where it's going to remain. So will be interesting to see if this actually ends up going to the launch site or something. And I think this, if it did go to the launch site, it would be interesting because it would give them additional storage for water. So like instead of having to completely fill the water tanks for the Deluge system every single time, they could have reserve water in here. So like once they actually use what's in the horizontal tanks, they can replenish it with this, and then they're just refilling this tank instead. So that will be interesting. But as far as we know right now, it may just stay here. And moving forward a little bit, we have okay. I always get these mixed up. So 28.
Yes.
25, which
Correct.
is still getting its tiles installed. And then the two that we don't care about as much, well, ship 20 and... Wait. Yeah, ship 20 and 27.
26.
26.
26, yeah, 27's dead, sorry. So let's look at some ground images of 25, shall we? So we can see what the progress is on the getting those tiles installed. I'm going to find one really quick here in the background. There we go. Man, this is really cool. It's been a while since I've been down in this area. It would be really cool to stand here and see all of this sitting here. But as y'all can see, the tile progress on 25 is going super slow. You have any comments on that, Ryer?
So tiles are generally very fragile things. They are essentially like 90% air. If you were to imagine like a really stiff, really brittle styrofoam, that's essentially the consistency that these are. It just in general seems like they have trouble with the tiles. The amount of waste that they probably go through installing these things is likely really high, and any sort of tolerance, I mean, you can't just like force those things into a hole that they're not going to fit in. So it almost makes me wonder if like a bunch of these tiles that are missing are for some reason just like slightly not the right shape or not the right size, or the pins are just not quite in the right spot. And yeah, I don't know. On the other hand, they really seem to be taking their sweet time with the tiles at the top of the ship. They have installed most of them. They had taped them to the ship, but it appears that they have now removed that tape, so maybe they're finally done and we could put that saga to rest. It's been quite a process watching them install tiles, take them off, install them, take them off. Yeah,
I seem to remember 25 looking a lot cleaner than this before.
Yeah, it's got like some
yeah,
tile mold or something going on the lower half.
I mean, it's been sitting out there a while. But yeah, that black layer sitting on top of the tiles, it's very, very thin. So any damage to it could potentially be quite not good.
Do you think all of these are still usable? I mean, it's really tough to tell from this, but they almost look damaged, especially in this area.
Hard to say. Some of those, I'd expect that they might wind up trying to replace them. If you see white, that's generally not a good sign. Some of these ones that are just like a slightly different shade of black, I don't really know. They might just be rough. If they go out there with like sticky notes or like colored pieces of tape again, then we'll know.
Get up one morning and it's green and orange and S20 days.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be the possibly limiting factor to when we see the next launch. I mean, because it does take a really long time for some reason to install the tiles up here, and we haven't seen a ton of progress with that. I mean, they've made
progress since that photo.
Say that again?
They have made progress since that photo. They have installed, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of those tiles. They had like taped them in place, but seems like they were taking the tape off this morning. Who knows? It could be almost done. It could be still weeks of work.
So they haven't actually fully filled it in yet, though?
I'd have to double check to give you a straight answer for that.
The nose cone area? Yeah, they fully filled it in.
Oh, so it's done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
For now, unless they go and take them back off and
but I'm saying
do it again.
The whole slot of them disappears.
Yeah, I guess from what I'm being told in the background here that they installed all of these yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a really cool close-up right here. It shows the plates that they have to install up here with the pins on it. So this plate gets mounted on top of what those lifting positions are. So this is actually pretty cool to see this angle of it.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this.
You can see there's just a lot of damage to those tiles. And it'll be really curious to see if they do bother replacing those. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of the black layer versus the white the white interior is. I would expect that the white interior is just as capable as the black at like dispersing heat just by nature. But I don't know if the black is like a protective layer that needs to be there. Because if that is the case, then they're going to need to do a lot of work on those tiles before launching it.
Yeah. I kind of have a feeling that they won't replace any of these because, just the chances that they actually have of re-entering on this next flight, it might not necessarily be worth it to them to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, like actually launching as soon as possible is probably more of their priority than making sure that they have the tiles absolutely perfect for reentry.
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to suddenly go right with this particular stack before the tiles really are worth anything.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to switch back over to those aerial views. Was there anything else that we should mention about any of the boosters or ships down here? Well, they have, as far as we know, they've finished installing all of the Raptors, right, on 28.
Yes, I believe so. Because we saw the 3 vacuums go in, and they had already installed the 3 levels or the sea levels. Wow, can't talk.
3 levels.
3 levels. Sea levels.
Yeah, and on the backside back here, they are finishing up that concrete work that we talked about last week, and it looks like these are like little trenches that go to this little hut right here, so probably related to either electrical systems or the pressurization systems for the ships. But yeah, minor detail to point out. And they had installed the second tank back here, so that'll gives them extra capability of pressurizing the vehicles. Let's see. I think that may be everything for the Sanchez site.
SN15's flaps are still just sitting there endlessly.
Yeah.
One of these days they're going to clean those up.
Yeah, it seems like they're not in a rush to do that. I wonder if they'll actually store them somewhere, like on display or something like that.
They'll reuse them.
Yeah. So these are they haven't changed much with these, right?
Not a whole lot, no.
So that'd be interesting if they actually ship them off or tile them here and then reuse them.
Yeah. Obviously, there's tiles missing and stuff, yeah, so they would have to deal with that first.
I guess we'll keep our eyes out on that.
I doubt they'll be reusing them.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, the tiles, they seem to just appear, and they can't be too hard to make compared to the rest of the ships. It seems like a weird thing to potentially risk. Then, yeah, who knows what's changed on the inside, too.
Yeah, very true.
It's been a while.
I figured they could put them on the HLS mock-up if they wanted to, but I don't really see a reason to do that. Especially since HLS shouldn't have flaps in the first place. Cool. Well, let's move over to the ring yard. Astro Joe, did we have any Sanchez questions?
We do. Donut Ask Me asks, could the new booster ring be for future new 33 Raptor static fire test stand elsewhere? And then related, Michael Oliver asks, what if that flat circle is to put on top of a booster for a static fire like they do with Falcon 9?
Well, so with Falcon 9, they secure it from the top as well too, I believe, for static fires. But
yeah, at McGregor.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they wanted to, if they wanted to do static fire tests at higher throttles, which would be really awesome. I mean, yeah, it could become necessary to both hold it down from the top and the bottom. So yeah, I mean, I suppose that could be a possibility. Without seeing the bottom of this, it's tough to say whether or not it has any integration hardware for the actual stage separation clamps. But I don't know. I guess I would kind of assume that it doesn't, but
Yeah,
it's not impossible.
The real argument against that is the 5-fold radio symmetry. Like, there's nothing on top of the booster that is like 5. It's all 6 or 12 or 4, but there's nothing really 5. So it'd be a weird thing to be building it in 5, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Thanks,
Also
Zach.
related to this image, Crane Man asks, do the beams on the white ring retract with a rack and pinion system? On other stands, they move with hydraulic pistons.
Yeah, so we showed that from the bottom. I can show it again here. They are using a piston, so a single piston to push them in and out. And here we go with that ground image. Yeah, so the piston mounts to that back wall, and then I think it may actually go through the wall. It's been tough to see. Let me see. I can't see it coming through back here on the other location, but it's possible that it does. But I think it just mounts onto that back wall somehow. But yeah, the piston, there should be some sort of hardware on the bottom of this that will attach to the piston or allow the entire thing to slide in and out.
That's all I got related to this one now.
Cool. Well, in that case, let us go ahead and move over to the ring yard where we have tons of excitement this week. Let's see. Let's start out with. I guess we'll start out with the Mega Bay. So this week they have started a lot of work on the inside of the Mega Bay. Some of it's a little bit difficult to see. That from here we can kind of see right here. Oh, actually, we can see it pretty well. That they have had at least one staircase installed at the time of this image, and I believe they installed another one over the last few days, possibly yesterday. They may even have 2 of them in there now, but yeah, this is nice to see because when they built the first one, I can't remember if they lifted them in from above or not. I think they did actually. I don't know how they did so the second set of stairs, I think they had to remove these cross braces and lift them in from the inside because the building was already complete by the time they did that. But it seems like right now that they are building both sets of stairs. So this is the first set of stairs right here. And then I believe these are the second set of stairs that they're starting right here. So seems pretty likely that they will actually fully mount those stairs in there before they actually put the roof on, which is cool. But on that note, they do seem ready to start lifting these roof sections up. But over this last week, as I said, this crane has been prioritizing those staircases. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep installing stairs first or if they start getting to work on the roof. But they have been making a lot of progress on the siding as well, which you can see here. They got guys on the side right here installing all of the siding going up the building, and they're almost to the top already. So I think there's a chance that for some reason they want to finish all the siding before they start doing that, before they start doing all the roof stuff. But yeah, making massive amounts of progress on this. Let's look at it from the back too. They haven't made as much progress on the back side of it, but they're still moving pretty quickly on this.
Yeah, it's still moving much faster than the first Mega Bay went up.
Way faster.
Yeah, you can tell they learned a lot. You know, that's happened. That's what happens when you build something like that.
Agreed. Yeah. And I mean, beyond just the roof trusses, they also have this truss I mentioned last week goes across the front doorway, and then these are the two large ones that go across. I think they mount to either side of the doorway, and they go across like this. I can't remember if there was 4 of them last time, or if it's just the 2. I believe there's actually 4. I believe
it was 4.
Yeah, 2 in the back, and then 2 on the sides, and then in the middle right here. So, yeah, and then you also have the beams that go across in between them. Actually, I think these go on the back side, like around the edges. I'm gonna have to go back and relook at some of those older images of Mega Bay 1 to remember where these pieces go. But yeah, a lot of pre-assembly work going, and they're moving super fast on that. It looks like they have a little bit more left to do as far as pre-assembly goes. But yeah, by the time all of these are ready, I'm assuming all the stairs will be installed and they'll be ready to lift all of these up here. On the front side of the building, you can see that they also have the most of the bridge crane sections in here, so they're still missing another one of these girders and the actual trolleys for these. So they're kind of just chilling here waiting right now. They still need to install the beam going across the back right here and the one going across the front right there before they actually lift these into place. I suppose they theoretically could do it before that, but I don't think they will.
On Mega Bay 1, they didn't lift them in place until the roof trusses were in place, and then they put them in from the middle. So I would imagine stacking order will be similar.
Yeah. And, I think there also are additional beams that go to the corners. Because I feel like the ones in Mega Bay 1 have a little bit more travel into the corners, but again, I'd have to go back and look at those older photos to verify that. But tons of progress on the Mega Bay. This crane's been busy pretty much every single day. So they're making lots of really good progress on that.
Yes.
So elsewhere in the ring yard, man, I don't even know if I want to consider. I don't even know what I want to talk about first here. Where do you want to start?
Well, so first off, the biggest thing you notice is they decide to pull a Neom and realize that the most efficient way to lay out everything is so they have taken every single one of their rings that were over in the kind of the main ring yard area and decided to lay them along Joanna Street for fun. Presumably they're going to be tearing down the mid bay soon, so yeah, you need the space to be clear and all that stuff, but it is kind of funny. And the most amusing thing to come out of this is whenever they need to get a ring yard or a ring from the middle of that line.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
And they gotta kind of like pull them all out and bring the one out and then put them all back, and it's been a joy watching. There are a couple things within that line that are relatively interesting.
Where do you want to start? Top down?
Yeah, sure. At the top, at the top, it's probably the Booster 13 section. Then so the second thing, it's either Ship 32 or Ship 31, the kind of the mid section of the blocks tank. We don't really know which one's which. They both look virtually identical, and Yeah, that's been kind of hard. The next thing though is like a double, but it's made of like those like shorter rings that they make the very bottom of the booster out of. No idea why they did that, but something interesting is they decided to carve out a little window in the side of it. Presumably, the leading theory is that that is a test of some welding and cutting system or something somewhere. It does not look like anything else that they would have used in any ship, booster, or test tank up to this point. It just seems weird. And then,
Do you think we should be expecting to see like more HLS related stuff soon, though?
I mean, it's got to happen at some point. It's hard because every time somebody sees like something new that can't be explained in any other way, it's very easy to go the HLS route. Like, oh, this is HLS, and sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's, well, most of the time it's not. So I hesitate calling that anything HLS related. Of course, it can be, but I personally doubt it at this point. There's just not a whole lot of evidence for that.
Is there another one of these down here? I thought I saw another one.
There are two. Yeah, there's a couple singles down there. One of those is actually a hot staging ring. The one at the bottom, that is that's a second hot staging ring, presumably for hot staging.
Do you think this might be a third one and it just hasn't had the holes cut in it yet?
No idea. It just seems to be a nondescript single at this point. Which, the fact that they put it on a stand suggests that it has plans, but
How do you think?
being a single, it's just hard to really say that it's anything at this point.
Then don't you think they would cut that pattern before they roll?
I mean, with all the tents getting destroyed, it's hard to say whether or not they even had the chance. Maybe they'll take it into some other tent, or, well, at this point, tent 3. Tent 1's now gone, if you didn't know. I hate to break it to you. Yeah, nothing's been done to it. It could be cut into another hot staging ring. It's just one of those things. It's impossible to say at this point. It's a single. It could be anything.
Let me rephrase my question. Wouldn't you think for those hot staging rings, especially since they left areas you've got to cut out, wouldn't you think they're cutting those before they roll them into a ring? They're cutting that pattern on like a laser, then rolling the ring, and then when they're ready, they go ahead and they use a torch or a grinder to grind the rest of that pattern out.
I suppose it's possible.
I would think not.
No? Okay.
Just because the laser cutters are probably like meant to be on a turntable, so you just put this on top of the turntable and spin it as it's.
I gotcha. Because they're using the robots. The robots can adjust that just fine. Yep.
Yeah, just slap it next to a Kuka. It'll carve it out for you.
Yep.
Was there anything on these ones that you wanted to mention?
There's a random E-dome, just right there in the middle. All the rest of the parts, it's... So there is a... So this is starting to get into the subject. We don't really know what's going on with Booster 14 at this point. It's like the parts just keep getting kind of moved around, and some of them, like, there's now a test tank that is getting built. If you go down, I think.
The test tank?
Oh, okay. Sure, let's talk about the test tank. So, they are taking seemingly a bunch of parts from random different parts of the entire system and putting them together. So this is 5 rings, where the bottom section is a triple ring section that kind of resembles the base of a booster, though notably a booster is now 4 rings that are each roughly 4 feet tall. So it's not exactly a booster aft section, and also they stuck an E-dome in it, which the boosters do not have an E-dome as the bottom dome, so again, just kind of weird. There's a stringer pattern inside of both that and the other element, which we cannot see in the flyover images nor in the ground photography at this point. It got rolled out afterwards. There is a stringer pattern that resembles some of the stringers on the ships. So you combine all these together. The top section is a double with a knee dome. Is
that out here right now?
No. during this photo, no, it is not out there.
Okay.
They wound up both getting moved into the high bay, and they were recently stacked and presumably welded together this morning, I believe. But yeah, it's some sort of test tank. It's hard to really say what it's going to be testing. It is actually the second tank that has E-domes as both the top and the bottom, so that is the one that they tested, and then they broke, and then they repaired, and then they tested, and then it broke. Like that whole process. This was earlier this year.
Right.
So unless that one like just failed entirely, which I mean with what was happening maybe, then it seems weird that they'd be testing the same thing.
And we have no idea like what part of the booster this would be related to.
Well, it doesn't seem to be related to any part of any booster or ship. It's just parts put together into a tank. It's like if you had a Lego set and you just tried to put... I mean, it might be. There's a lot of stringers, a lot of reinforcement for like a water tank, unless it's going to be like a pressurized water tank. Which,
right, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things. They seem to spring one of those up every now and then, and presumably in a few weeks we'll know a little better what that is.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to keep our eyes on that. There's another test tank out here, which we're still waiting to see action on. The payload section, which we mentioned earlier at the start of the show when we were talking about Massey's. So still waiting on this to actually move out, but it seems like they're preparing for it at the Massey site. So I don't know, maybe we'll see them move it this week.
Yeah, it did get a payload door installed on it recently, back on the 20th.
They got that installed now?
Yeah.
Maybe I can see it from this direction.
Oh,
yep, there it is.
Oh, wow, I missed that somehow.
Yeah, last week it was just sitting out here, and it looks like they got it installed. So probably the last remaining thing they needed to do before they are able to move it.
So I guess we'll see.
Let's see. What else we got in the ring yard?
Well, we have a bunch of random assortment of pieces there, including various booster parts, various ship parts. Of course, there's the ship 31 or 32, one of the two, that kind of mid-locks tank section that looks identical to the one in the conga line. Again, no idea which is which. You got the maybe ship 32 common dome right there that you're hovering over. Above that, you've got a booster aft sleeve. We don't really know specifically which one it is, but at this rate, it could be for a test tank. Who knows? Then, of course...
I feel like we haven't seen a thrust pug show up in a while for a booster.
No, not that I recall. I don't have the date of the last one on hand.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. One interesting thing, I think, to see if they are continuing to build those off-site, or if they possibly will start building these within the Star Factory.
Yep. They still got that cone just sitting there. It's been there for a while.
This one?
Yep. It was for ship 34, but doesn't seem to be anymore. It's the 37th nose cone. So
yeah, because all of the other nose cones have tiles on them, the ones that are in Tent 3, right?
Yeah. I mean, not all of them, but most of them. That is where that is happening. So, yeah, the Tent 3 is just kind of organized like a little bit of a production line. It just kind of moves down toward the end near Star Factory end.
Right.
And, yeah.
So I guess we can probably talk about the mid-bay. So as you all know, the mid-bay is in the process of being disassembled, and you can see that they have barriers set up all the way around here. And from what we can tell, all of these have been filled up with water, so it's like they definitely don't want them moving anywhere if there's any like debris pushing up against them. So from what we can tell, it looks like they will actually like not like I guess there's two ways that you can possibly disassemble this, and that's either piece by piece or just dropping the whole thing at once. And as you can see that they've taken off the siding on the bottom. I was kind of hoping that they were going to have this thing destroyed by the end of this past week, but I don't know if it was because of the storm that they kind of held off on it, or if they, didn't want to risk having to move a bunch of debris if as they're rolling Booster 9 down. But yeah, still haven't seen them actually continue with this disassembly. But with the way that this drop zone looks like, I mean, it seems like they're actually going to pull the whole thing down at once, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've been moving some rings in and out of the drop zone. Just they seem to be now storing stuff on where Tent 2 once stood since this photo was taken. So I was going to suggest that all those barriers filled with water actually just drinks for the workers, but I figured that'd be a stupid comment, so I didn't say it.
Well, as far as disassembly goes, we also should mention, let me get a picture showing the whole thing here. Yeah, this is a good one. So as you all can tell from the beginning when we started showing this, Tent 2 had been demolished, and as of yesterday or this morning, Tent 1 is also gone as well.
I believe that was this morning, yeah.
Yeah, so now all we have left is Tent 3, which is going to be kind of odd because they're will essentially build the Star Factory around Tent 3, and then that'll be the last section of it that's completed. But yeah, they've been, you can see they have all of this debris down here that they've been putting in these trailers and then shipping them away. And I think they waited until they finished all this cleanup work before they pulled down the second tent. But yeah, next week this view is going to look a lot different from what we're seeing here.
Yep. It's almost a sad day. The tents have been there for so long.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we were kind of expecting them to finish Star Factory construction before they did that.
Yeah, they are not doing that. It is nice. So we're able to now better see into some of the bays now that all the tents are gone. So for this temporary fleeting moment in time, our jobs tracking all these parts around this facility is a lot easier. Of course, once they start doing everything inside of a big building, it'll be a lot harder. But for now, we're living good.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty insane the amount of ring sections they're going to be able to fit throughout this entire facility once it's completed.
Gonna need a bigger ring yard.
Yeah, I mean they should have a really long one here once it's finished, or once the mega bay is completed. But I guess one thing that we didn't mention is just like what happens after this is done. And I have some opinions on it. I'm thinking that, in my opinion, the only thing that makes sense is to build another mega bay. And the problem with the footprint of this is that, if it was centered around this building, it would be really close to butting up against the side of the Star Factory, which isn't a huge deal. But I'm one of those people who kind of has OCD as far as like symmetry goes. So I'm thinking that if they do build another one, we may actually see it shifted over so that it lines up with Mega Bay number 2. And then if that was the case, then they would just move the entrance down to here.
It's bold of you, Zach, to suggest that they'd do that to satisfy your OCD.
Yeah, I know. But, I feel like overall it would make the site look a lot better. It's just kind of weird. The way that it would look if it was anything other than that. And it's not really that difficult to just move an entrance over. So I guess the question after that is, essentially it'll be kind of colliding with their parking lot right here. And
They got another one.
right. it also
They'll be
puts
fine.
the future of what's this building called? Stargate building into question. Yep. But then beyond that, one thing that I've been saying on Twitter over the last few weeks is I strongly believe that if they do put a third mega bay here, which I don't see them doing anything other than that. I mean, I can't see a reason to break this down to put extended the Star Factory. Like that just wouldn't make sense because it's just way too big of a factory for the amount of stacking capability they have. But the thing is that right now, currently as it stands, there is one, and I don't think of it as buildings that they have for stacking. I think of it as the bridge cranes that they have. So right now will be one bridge crane for stacking ships and 4 bridge cranes for stacking boosters, which really doesn't make sense because at some point you're going to be reusing boosters within the near future. So theoretically, you would think that ship production would soon need to start outpacing booster production by a large margin. And with that said, that is one of the big reasons why I think that this is coming down for another mega bay. And I also believe that there's a very good chance that they will end up removing the high bay as well. Like once this one is complete, I think that they will remove the high bay and build a third mega bay there, or fourth mega bay there. And there's lots of reasons for that. Number one, just because it's deeper and also obviously wider. But beyond that, in my opinion, I think that this building is structurally insufficient. So when you look at the amount of foundation work that went into both of these two structures, specifically this one, like I even think this one is slightly insufficient, but it at least has a massive foundation. It doesn't have the pilings going into the ground like this one does, but it at least has a large foundation. And this one just really doesn't have that. It's like a flat concrete slab with embeds sticking out of it, and that this one on top of it. And if you guys were following this program for a while, you know that they've at the beginning of this were constantly replacing the concrete out front of here, and it's tough to say why that is. It probably could have just been from the weight of boosters moving back and forth, but it also could have been the actual building itself like shifting and breaking that concrete as a result of it. So I think that I've been saying this for, I don't know, ever since they started Mega Bay, the first Mega Bay, I've been saying that I think this building will go at some point. So, they have this huge crane here, and it is partially owned by SpaceX. And until they start working on the factory in Florida again, this really has nowhere else to go. So I'm just assume that they're going to continue building new bays here. With the size of this factory, it just seems right. You can kind of envision it when you're looking at it right here that, it really makes sense to have 4 mega bays in front of these tents or in front of the factory.
No, I guess one question is once they do that, if they need to expand further, where would they go?
Florida.
just outright, just like, oh, we're done here.
Yeah, I think they're kind of maxed out here. Well, there are technically properties that go back here. So, if they somehow got approval to start building back here, I think they would have to purchase all those properties first in order to start doing that. But it is not impossible. I guess theoretically they could do that, and then at that point, I wonder if they would also need to expand the factory out. But it's going to be interesting to see the capabilities of this building because right now, with those 3 tents and this building, there's space in between those buildings that wasn't being used, and so this just overall has way more floor space than what they previously had. So we've seen their production rate just using the 3 tents plus this one star factory section. So once this whole thing is operational, that's just a massive amount of floor space, especially when you consider the fact that they'll have all the bridge cranes and even more workstations. Like there weren't really that many workstations in these 2 tents, and in tent 1 for the most part, they had a ton of Raptor engines sitting in there for a long time. So there was even a lot of that floor space was just taken up by Raptors. And so that's not going to happen in this factory. You know, I can imagine 4 bays, each of them having their own Raptor engine storage. I guess you may not need them for the. You probably wouldn't need this for the ship bays, I guess, but definitely for boosters, you probably would want another one of these on the back side of this. So, yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to see on that though. But moving towards the actual Star Factory building, let's see. I'm trying to grab a better image.
While you pull that image up, Zach, I wanted to just get an update. LabCam shows they've built the roof corner on the top of Mega Bay since yesterday, or during the day yesterday. I had not noticed it. So that the back right corner's up. So that answers one of our questions, and that is those 2 roof trusses are the only full trusses they'll put up. They'll stick build or section build the rest of them.
Oh wow! So
even those in sections, yeah.
Did that last night?
It was sometime late yesterday. I didn't notice it yesterday when I looked, but it's up there now. You can see it clearly on LabCam.
Well, all right. I did not notice that either.
Thanks to Jay Tan in chat pointed it out, so thank you, Jay.
Nice. Yeah, I usually don't look at the live streams before the shows because I'm, getting stuff ready. So that's interesting development. They got those mounted up there pretty quickly then.
Yep. So you got a whole corner.
Wow. Cool. But yeah, so with the actual Star Factory, we can see that they've got those roof pieces going all the way across to section 1. And here, I'm going to get a better angle of this if I can. This will probably show it. So in the process of that, they've had to take down some of the siding up here just so that they can get those roof beams. They kind of have to go through that wall a little bit. So I think we will probably see them add the roof panels on here, and then going back to that other angle that I had. I think this shows it. No. 1 second.
You can see the mounts for the air conditioners, the condensing units on that new section of roofing too. We've been wondering where those are at, and there they are.
On this section? Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, because we were kind of expecting them to go all the way back here, but
none of the sections had it this time. It's like, wait a second, there they are.
That's kind of weird because it's just gonna make an L up here.
They did it for your OCD, Zach.
Yeah, maybe
just for you.
There's probably no chance of them adding them down here. So I guess that makes sense. And on that note, with this being a door that opens up, it kind of does make sense to have your HVAC above that because that's where your heat's going to come out of. But yeah, so they've got that doorway in here, which should allow trucks to drive in and out. But I think that once the roof is complete up here, we may actually see, and I'm going to have to go to the other side again for this, all over the place today. Where's a good view of that?
You're doing great, Zach.
I think this shows it. Well, I guess right now it's kind of tough to tell, but I believe there may be another door here, possibly. Not sure how much that's needed, but the other possibility is, and I'm seeing the tabs here now, they may actually, well, there's tabs on this part, but there's none right here, so maybe there'll be another door right there. But that allows them to seal up this side of the building, and I imagine that they will possibly put up temporary wall panels on the outside of this section of the building, at least right here, just until they take down tent 3. But it is also possible that at the rate that they're going, let's say that the first nose cone section of the building is completed, that they may actually just take tent 3 down and move everything into this building before we even see this stuff completed. So yeah,
almost build it clockwise.
Yeah, that's actually a kind of cool way of doing it. But they're one way or another, they're going to need temporary siding up here and down here, at least until they get clearance to build out in this area. So yeah, I mean, they're moving super fast. As of right now, you guys can see that they've got roofing going down over into this part of the structure as well too. And this is the beginning of the nose cone section of the building down here. So I think there's two different levels of it. Like there's a slightly taller section right here, then it gets even taller down here. So
Yep.
I think you. I don't know. I don't know if it's tall enough to actually stack a nose cone. If it'll be tall enough to stack a nose cone on top of the payload section or not. But theoretically, it should be able to do that. Let me see some ground images actually of this. Yeah, looking at the Star Factory from the ground is crazy because it's so large. I don't know if I have a good view that shows that section of the building or not. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so you can kind of see how tall it is right there. I mean, you definitely are able to put a full nose cone in this section of the building, but I imagine that the payload section will probably be in the forward part of the building. So that's going to be really cool to actually watch that build out. But yeah, they're moving super quick getting these up here. I think they have a third one mounted already right now. A third column. So they're moving super quick. We have some more angles of those too.
So look at that steel. That is heavy on the inside. And if you go 2 beams back, that next set of white beams is really, really heavy. Do you think they might put together like a gantry where they could take a nose cone and hook it up and move it from section to section, through like a roof gantry type system?
You mean like going across the building instead of...
Well, they don't have to put on like a stand and move it, where they could actually possibly just... That's a long way though when you look at it from overhead.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't imagine any bridge cranes going in this direction, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah. But I mean, what you can see here, like fairly well, like if you just imagine like all your nose cones and possibly even the payload sections being constructed in here. But or either that or your payload sections being constructed in this side, since you don't need it as tall. And then when you move both of those into this section of the building, which will be even taller, and integrate them and do all that final outfitting before stacking. Man,
are those?
Go ahead.
Are those 2 foundation holes in the yellow there? Are they new, or those areas they never concreted?
I think those are new. It almost looks like they cut them and then they like they cut it down to the vapor barrier and then move those out. I don't know. I have to go back and check on some previous images. I think those are new though. But yeah, these walls on this back half are way heavier duty than even the stuff that's over here. So that's going to be interesting to see why that's constructed that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, making tons of really good progress on the Star Factory. And again, as we see this next week, we'll see even more progress. And I mean, it's just really, really crazy how fast this is going. Let's see. Do we have any other stuff from the Star Factory that we need to touch on? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, do we have any questions on the Ring Yard or Star Factory, Joe? I know we have some donations too.
Yeah, we got a couple of donations. I want to thank Biff Pope for becoming a early access member. Kenneth Coates donated $20 via PayPal. Keep up the amazing work and keep cool. James L. with $5 donation. Thanks for all the hard work you guys do. Benedict, €10. What up? Paul Tompkins for 99 in pounds. They ultimately need a lot more ships than boosters. Another high bay where mid bay sits would make sense and fit better. There's been a lot of questions. I'm trying to keep them relevant. Our question bot was broken, and I've been slammed with them, so I'm going to leave out the ones that we've already covered on. And for time constraints, just kind of get through a couple here. Scott Gary says, where are they storing all the construction tools, robots, etc. from tents 1 and 2?
Well, I don't think there was really that much equipment in those tents, honestly. Um, they did have a few welding stations, but they were on like really small frames, and so I don't know. I don't think that they're going to necessarily need those same workstations inside of the Star Factory, so they may have just scrapped them.
Right. Jack Moore asks, do you think they'll rip up all the concrete that was under and around the tents, or just keep the concrete that's already there?
Yes.
They'll definitely rip them up because they're going to have to do all of the underground conduit work or the electrical work. So yeah, they'll definitely start ripping those up here soon. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see them rip up the concrete where tent 2 was by the time the next flyover.
Yeah, definitely. Julian FP, question, if mid-bay replacement was ship-specific mega bay, then it might connect to factory so nose cone and barrel sections could flow directly into it from factory or for stacking.
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible. That would just require putting a door on the side of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason that couldn't happen.
Trying to think about how that would be laid out. You'd have a door on the side and a door on the front so that ships could, of course, leave. I guess that would require you to leave clearance on 2 sides of it.
Yeah.
They could just rotate it 90 degrees and make it where you come in the back side and you leave out the front side.
Yeah. And you almost got like the VAB where it's just this kind of atrium in the middle.
Yep.
And everything happens along the sides. That could be cool.
One good one just came in. HamCon. Is there any evidence that equipment has been installed in the press pit?
That is a good question. So we did see the big H frame that we saw last week. It was like big, huge frame that was shaped like an H was actually lifted in there, transported over there. And presumably that is now inside of the pit. Unfortunately, from the aerial views, we can't really see in there that well. But we're assuming that it has been, that part of it has been installed. If we look at where we're going next, which is the village area, and we'll actually have to see this from the ground, I think. They brought in a bunch of new hardware that was in these large boxes, and presumably those are also part of that system as well. And so they've been assembling all of that inside of this building and then transporting it down. And I think we have one interesting ground image that kind of shows one of those pieces. It's a really odd looking piece, which tough to tell what it's actually for. Let me see if I can find that really quick. Yeah, so this is one of those pieces that was being lifted out of the box inside of that building. And I guess it moved it out of the way, so we couldn't see it after that. But, oh wait, there it is behind. Yeah, so all the press pit stuff is being assembled here and then being moved over to the Star Factory. And I think part of the reason for that is simply because they don't have the bridge cranes inside of that building yet, so they're just doing all of it in here. That makes it a lot easier for them to multitask. It's kind of crazy that this crane could fit inside this building.
They're not getting it back out.
Cool. So what else was that? The last question?
We Will Rocket You asks, do we have any evidence that the Star Factory will be covered in solar panels?
As far as I know, it's just
right
desires at this point. Hopes and dreams.
I mean, it'd be cool to see a giant SpaceX logo on the top of it.
Maybe they'll do like the Blue Origin feather, just
Oh,
for
wow.
fun.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely possible.
The Blue Origin feather?
No, not that. But with the new 3-phase power system from Brownsville, I'm not sure if it's needed. I know that a few weeks ago there was an accident on Highway 4 that ended up taking out the power for a little bit, and I don't know if that affected Starbase though, because it was in the middle. It could be possible that they may want to have solar panels so that they can use that during peak usage hours. But yeah, as far as we can tell right now, it doesn't necessarily look like that. But it's definitely something that can be installed down the road pretty easily. It makes sense to have them, that's for sure.
Randall Williams asks, is there enough room between Mega Bay 1 and Mega Bay 2 to transport ships from Rocket Garden instead of having to go around all the buildings?
Wait, say that again?
Is there enough room between Mega Bay 1 and Mega Bay 2 to transport ships from Rocket Garden instead of having to go around all the buildings?
Yeah. So if we look at them from the air, I gotta get a good angle of it. Yeah, they should be able to move through here. Obviously, the reason that they are not doing that right now is because they have all this construction equipment down here. So at some point, it is possible that they'll go through this way. This is a pretty reinforced road right here, and it looks like wide enough for boosters to move through here. So yeah, it's possible. And you know what? While we're over here, this pad right here is definitely large enough for another mega bay. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't look like there's going to be one there, at least right now, because obviously they're taking down mid bay. So if they were going to build another mega bay here right now, I think that they would do that first before taking down the mid bay. But this would be a great place to expand the rocket garden out to. Cool. Any more questions?
Good on questions. Let's go ahead and move on.
Cool. Well, at the village, there's not really a ton to mention. They have fully cladded the building down here, which we think may be some kind of food court or shopping center for employees. And they've also started another smaller one right here. So this one looks a little different because they got shipping containers on the side of it. But yeah, it could be something similar. And, you know, they've removed the tracking stations down here. So it's possible we may see even more stuff like related to, you know, just making life easier for employees working here, whether that's like a rec center or, I don't know, you know, just another shopping center type thing.
Zach,
yeah.
I'm a naysayer. I think that building's going to be an inventory tent so they can clean up all that mess in the middle. An inventory building.
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible. They it's just the shape of it on the inside is weird, having two walls on the inside. But yeah, it's definitely possible. Let's see. Not much to really mention going on down here, though. Still working on the booster transport stand. And other than that, just a typical storage yard with storage stuff in there. And we have the HLS nose cone prototype, which obviously we can't really see much progress on it since it's way back here. But presumably they're in there working on something. So that'll be interesting to find out what they're actually doing in there, but I doubt we'll see it for a very long time. Cool. So I don't think there's much to talk about back on this side of the village. So I think we can go ahead and move ourselves to the launch site. Cool, let's do it. All right, now we have the suborbital pad. and this is kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, where if those larger black ring sections are potentially for booster test stands, then we should probably start seeing them prepare ground for that soon. And right now, we can kind of see some work going on back here. So they have it's kind of weird over here, but they're almost like a sidewalk that's going on back here, but it goes all the way down back and around the this section of the suborbital site, and they've been moving a ton of dirt in and out of here, and so we don't really know what's actually happening yet here, but they're definitely preparing for something. So I don't know. I think 1 + 1 might equal 2 on this, and we may see actual work on another test stand. And the only thing that makes sense to me would be for boosters, because you already have 2 for ships. And like right now, let's say that booster 10 already had its engines, which it doesn't, but they could want to start testing booster 10 while they're waiting for, the launch mount to be ready. So having another place to do either static fires or spin prime and cryo tests for boosters other than Massey's would make sense. So yeah, I mean, and on the note of Massey's, like, we have seen that structural test stand that is being constructed down there, and so anything else, I mean, obviously they could just move that in and out when they want to do the structural test or regular cryo tests. But the only place they can do static fires right now is on the launch mount. So I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that we'll see a huge hole, a huge ditch in the ground here soon. Once they get the walls up, I don't know. I would imagine they would need to put like a cofferdam around it in order to prevent water from building up down there when they're trying to do whatever they're doing. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this develops. Do you guys have any thoughts on it?
I mean, it seems like if they were going to be building a booster static fire stand, that they would need to have a few fairly heavy-duty ring structure type things being built.
Yeah, like you said, 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, I just don't see how they could do static fires anywhere else without having a flame trench. And as I mentioned last week, I think it's gonna, if they do put a flame trench here, I think a lot of people will start to question why they didn't do that on the launch mount. But it's kind of obvious why they didn't. But a place where they can do actual long duration static fires and actually direct it. I'm guessing if they had a flame trench, it would go this way. So, having your booster sitting over here and then firing out that direction would be pretty awesome. And in order to get it back there, I think one of the things that they would need to do is expand the road, expand the entrance over here, they're just in the beginning stages of that, but this kind of is shaped, in my opinion, like a turn-in. If it actually goes all the way over to the barrier down here. So
is that choke point that they're building up there at the top left, is that wide enough? Like if you see like the path that they're building in between that and the tank.
That's a good question. I mean, well, so if you think about it, let me look it up here. Yeah, I mean, it's weird that it looks like it goes all the way down up here, but yeah, this would kind of be, I guess, a choke point that would make it seem like it's probably not wide enough, but I think it could fit.
I mean, if they could straighten it out.
Say that again?
If they could straighten it out, it shouldn't be too hard to get it through a gap that's small, just so long as it is big enough, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would be interested to see, like, if they need to expand this tank farm when they do that.
Got a couple of relevant questions while we're here, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Vintage EM 09. A few years ago, there was a blueprint consisting. Whoops, I got another one come in. Hold on. A few years ago, there was a blueprint consisting of more suborbital launch pads at the launch site alongside a second landing pad as well as a second orbital pad. What was this about? And also, while we're here, Jacob asks, could this possibly be what that new white ring we saw before could be for?
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, we have been expecting a test stand C over here, and I think there was a D as well too. I can't remember where the D. Oh, I think D was supposed to be in this area or something like that. I could be wrong, but yeah, there was at least 4 of them on the that sheet on that plan, and I believe they were labeled as booster test stands. So again, I'd say 1 + 1 = 2. So definitely going to be a area that we keep our eyes on over the next few months.
Mm-hmm. I still think they should just test the boosters horizontally. I don't care about structural issues. I just want to see it.
That'd be rad, Ryer.
Agreed. Would be pretty amazing. So that's really all that's going on at the suborbital side. Let's touch on the orbital tank farm really quick, because do you have one update going on over there, or I guess maybe 2, but yeah, they finished all of the foundations for the cryo storage tanks. So with them being done, we may see those start to show up soon, but again, I'm personally not expecting them until after the next launch, because that's a lot of work. I mean, obviously they did bring one in, but they haven't really started connecting it yet. So, I think that as soon as the next launch is over, these things will start showing up. But beyond that, they have installed, you can see it here, another kettle boiler for the methane side. So I initially thought these were going on the LOX side because they had added an additional pump over there, which also isn't hooked up yet. But over here, this does make a lot of sense to me because you have 3 pumps, so it makes sense to have 3 kettle boilers. And it's kind of like makes me wonder whether or not the methane pumps have actually been running or have been operating at their full capability. I imagine that it may not be because without that 3rd kettle boiler, they don't have the cooling capacity they needed to actually do it at that rate, at that high of a rate. But these kettle boilers are different than the LOX side because they control the internal pressure using these valves on the front. So it is possible that by running it at a different pressure set point or whatever, that they were able to run these at a higher rate. But I've been thinking that the methane prop load is super slow for a long time. So I have a feeling that these have not been operating at their full potential, and adding this one in here should allow that to happen. But they've also, I think yesterday, added in a 4th one. So in my mind, I think we should see a 4th methane pump here soon. And that kind of aligns with predictions I made in a few episodes ago that I posted on my channel. So looks like that's been starting to happen, and I think it's even going to be even more important to have these on the LOX side. So, 1 additional pump, you're probably going to need 2 additional kettle boilers, and then once they add the 5th pump, which we know that they do have, then they'll need 2 more back here. So, I'm actually wondering when we'll see those arrive, because technically they already have them at KSC, where a lot of the tanks that they removed, the cryo storage tanks were removed from KSC and brought here. And so I have a feeling that they may just steal those kettle boilers from Florida and then transport them here, because that will allow them to reduce the lead time on how long it takes to get those. But yeah, I'm expecting that we will see more kettle boilers show up within the next few weeks. But yeah, really awesome progress. I mean, that the whole goal with that is to reduce the amount of time it takes to load propellants. Obviously, you're giving yourself a little redundancy as well in case one of the pumps becomes inoperable or something. But yeah, ideally you want to bring that propellant load time down to 45 minutes. I think during the integrated flight test it was 90 minutes. So with this additional capacity, they should be able to load propellants much faster, which is going to be pretty cool to see. All right, well, let's talk about the orbital side really quick, or the actual launch mount. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, SpaceX had connected some more of these high-pressure gas tanks. They're not fully connected yet. Well, actually, they might be now. Let's take a look at some ground images, see if we can see it. I think there might be too much in the way, stopping us from actually viewing it, but I'll try. Yeah, really tough to see back here. Actually, yeah, we can tell that these two up here still aren't connected. This one's not connected, and there's a bunch over here that aren't connected yet, but it looks like about 50% of them maybe are connected, maybe slightly less. So that gave them a little bit more gas pressure to use, essentially as a pump during that last static fire test yesterday. But when they finish installing this actual water tank right here, they're probably going to also need all of the rest of those tanks hooked up. And some of these could just be extra for Booster 10, because Booster 10, well, actually, we don't know if Booster 10 is going to have the Raptor 3s. We don't know when those are going to debut. But when they start using the Raptor 3s, they're going to need probably even more force out of this. So, just future-proofing the design and making it so that they can add more in the future, add more pressure in the future as needed. But they can also increase the amount of tanks that are stacked on top of these if they want to as well. But yeah, we're still waiting. I think one of the big things that we're going to be waiting on for the next launch will be for this tank to actually be connected. So they're still working on it and have not actually finished that yet. So we'll know when it's done. Well, at least when the work on the actual tank itself is done, when they actually shift it back into position. And I don't know, that may happen over the next week or two, but yeah, they're making some good progress on that. And then they'll also have to install the rest of the manifolds on top of it as well. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the big final things I think we need to see before the launch. And I just noticed down here that this trench is full of water.
Yep, a lot of rain.
Was it from the rain or is it from the deluge system?
You know what? I don't know if it was from the rain at this point. It may be from the deluge system. It may be from the water table.
I would hope not. I mean, when that water system's running, it does kind of go straight over over here, so it probably is from the deluge system.
But not only that water, you've got the water that comes out of the weirs when they're
shooting straight up into the air. Yeah, I guess they're gonna want to get those covered up soon. They're still taking their time getting the rest of these mounted. I think they have to cut them especially so that they can fit around these pipes, but I'm sure we'll see that finished before the next launch. Or it might not be super necessary. Kind of just keeping our eyes out on the progress of this. But they have closed in they have some sensors mounted on top of the pipes inside of this enclosure. So looks like they've finished that up and got that closed in. So it's getting pretty close to being finalized. I mean, it looks really good the way that this is out here. So they've got concrete all on the backside over here. This looks way better than it did before the last launch attempt. And finally, moving over to the actual launch mount. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wait till next week to see how this looks. But I mean, from the SpaceX drone cameras, I think it looked like it held up pretty well. Obviously, the water was still flowing by the time the video ended. But from what we could tell, it looked like it was performing really well. I mean, obviously the water shot right back up as soon as the booster engines turned off. So the real question is going to be how the fondag fared. So they did have areas over here where they poured new fondag, like down in this area as well too. And then I think on the other side of the launch mount, but it's really tough to see where they did that at. I think there was a patch right here and possibly right here. And before this last static fire, they went and I can't tell if this is actually paint this time or if it's some sort of grout. I think it's paint. They marked the cracks down here just so they could tell where the cracks were beforehand, and probably one of the things that they're going to do right now is go and see if those cracks have spread. So hopefully everything held up pretty well, but from what we were able to see, it seemed like everything went really good. I mean, we're going to have to just wait till next week though. But one of the big things that they did finish between now or the last episode and today was getting this little tiny curb installed around the edge. So this prevents a very small amount of the water from going over the edge of the pad and rolling down into, there's a little pipe in here that goes underneath and comes out right there.
It's doing its best.
Yeah, it's doing its best. It can't do much, but it's doing its best. I mean, that was a really exciting test. I think maybe we show it one more time for those who weren't here at the beginning of the show. We might as well. Let me get that up here. And I still have this running at the 25% speed. I'm going to speed it up first and then we can watch it in slow-mo one more time. What? It's not letting me change it. Okay, cool. Here. Oh, there we go. Really? Wow. Are you guys seeing that?
Yeah.
No. Okay. I'm trying to exit full screen. There we go. I love the Twitter bugs. So let's get us back up to 1x.
It is interesting how when it fires up, there's like the two separate stages, and it's the second stage of lighting all the engines that the pressure wave kind of pushes out all the, I guess, the vapor, the condensed steam, and it just all disappears very quickly.
Did you notice that it actually looks like it throttles down, like the whole thing kind of drops off for a second? I feel like I saw it better from the other view. Let me maybe this view shows it better. Yeah, you can kind of see it gets a little bit darker in there, and then it throttles back up. Here, I'll show it right there. Right there, it throttles down and then back up. I wonder if that was possibly when they lost engines or if it actually throttled back down. I would love for Elon to do another Twitter space soon so we can ask more questions, but I don't know how much he'd be willing to go into detail on that stuff.
The Deluge system, it just fires the water over those ditches.
Yeah, straight over.
It's just completely over.
So one of the thoughts I've heard regarding the little wall is they're more concerned with catching the water that's running across the concrete than the water that's getting lobbed out into the air, into the RGV, because the water being put into the system is potable. And so the thought process is if it comes out and goes up and over, it's not as big of a deal as the water that's running across the concrete and picking up rubber and oils and things like that. So that
makes sense.
That's the...
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that case, it probably is doing its job pretty well. I still think at some point we may see an actual retention pond over here. But we're going to have to wait and see on that. I really wonder where all the water goes on this side. I would love to see it after the test from the air, where, if it's just all sitting on the pad or if it drains back this direction. Because it's tough to see how this is graded. But yeah. But as we mentioned, after the test, as of this morning, They have brought back the engine maintenance stand, so that is underneath the launch mount right now, and they're doing something with the Raptor. So we did see two of the engines, or we didn't see it, but SpaceX said that they did lose two engines during the static fire attempt. I've heard some things about it, but hopefully SpaceX will actually come out and say stuff about it, because I don't know how true the things I heard were. So yeah, I think overall it went better than the last test. Obviously, losing two engines is still enough to actually launch. You know, they could lose theoretically one more and still be able to lift off. So yeah, I mean, that's good news, but obviously we still would want to see a static fire test where they don't lose any engines at all. And, you know, I think one thing that would help them is being able to do longer duration tests. And obviously that's not going to happen on this launch mount, because you really only have about, I would say, maximum 10 seconds that you can run the water deluge system. Maybe 15, I don't know, but it's a very low number. And yeah, I think with every other rocket they do like long duration tests. So you know, I would assume that they actually want to do that. They just can't right now. So it will be interesting to see if they actually end up constructing another test stand like we were assuming they will. I think that'll help them out a lot if they do something like that. Cool. So we kind of went over on our time. That's why I was like speeding through this last part, because I am back in Denver and I'm going to hang out with the family later today. So, but let's make sure we answer some questions. So I know there's got to be some at the launch site.
I've got one from early in the show related to static fire and the tower here from Donut. Ask me, does it seem they still have a gap towards drawworks getting battered by flames? Does that need a little more attention?
Well, I mean, they fully covered the drawwork side again, so I don't know. I did expect them to actually like raise this concrete wall up so they wouldn't even have to worry about this steel panel here, but that's obviously not happening. That's how the second launch tower is constructed, but they didn't do that here for some reason. I'm not really sure if that answers the question though.
Right. We haven't had anything else come in other than some donations. Jake Winlow gifted 5 memberships. Jacqueline gifted 1 membership. And Jim Cabot, $10 super chat. Thanks for all your hard work. John Dopker, $10 super chat. I'll second that, he says. Rocket Prophet, our very own, thanks for your mod ship today, sir. $10. Choo choo. That's all I got, buddy.
Wow, that's crazy. We never don't have lots of questions at the launch site.
I think everybody was just really focused on watching that static fire.
Hey, well, that works for me. Well, Nate and Ryer, did you guys have anything else you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up?
Nothing really there. No, we pretty much covered everything today.
I guess I just wanted to say thanks for having me here. It's been interesting.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Appreciate you helping us out, especially you know, all the ring yard stuff, because I'm not very fluent with all of that stuff. I hope one day I'll be able to have more time to actually pay attention to what goes on in the ring yard, but it's nice to have.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, for now, definitely. Yeah, if you want to do it, you better get on it soon.
Right.
Soon all going to be inside of a building. It's always fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on. Hopefully we'll see you again on the show as well too. Always welcome. And if you guys haven't followed the Ring Watchers on Twitter, make sure you do that. They post a lot of updates during the week about just, you know, various stuff happening at the ring yard and just around Starbase. So make sure you guys follow them if you haven't already on Twitter. And also make sure you follow Nate as well. I think I can't see the actual stream right now. I think his Twitter handle's in the bottom of the stream. But yeah, thank you, Nate, for being on the show as well too. Really appreciate having you on.
Yeah, man, it's always great to be on. I enjoy it, and It's just great to follow what's happening down there in Boca. And so, again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And also shout out to Astro Joe for helping us out with questions and donations. Appreciate that. As I mentioned, Mauricio is out doing ground photos today, so thank you for helping us out with that.
Always a pleasure. It's been a fun episode, as usual. Thanks, Mauricio, for all the great images. Thanks, you guys. Been fun chatting with you. Signing off.
Awesome. Do we still have Indy with us? Indy did some great production work for us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Indy, did you want to do the sign off? Because I always mess it up.
Of course. It would be my pleasure. Did you want to say bye
But
first?
before we do that really quick, those of you who haven't already joined on Patreon, if you guys would like to see all of these images yourself, you'll get access to the full gallery of images whether you're a YouTube member or a Patreon member. So if you like to go through these images yourself and kind of take more time to look through them, then that is the best way to do it. And Mauricio will be posting ground images later today. So obviously, since we're not going to be able to cover those on the show, that'll be one way for you guys to be able to see those pictures today. And hopefully he has some good shots of the launch mount from today. So yeah, make sure you guys do that if you haven't already. And with that, I guess I'll see you next week. And Indy, take it away.
Main engine cut off. Stage separation confirmed. Love you guys. See you next week. Bye.